Okay, now we're going to do question 13. What is spiritual death? Now, so notice the question before, question 12 said, what is the punishment for sin? Death, which is spiritual, physical, and eternal. And that's going to make you think, what is spiritual death? What's physical death? What's eternal death? And the Catechism is now going to start answering them questions. Now, this is something you see in ancient catechisms. They do this, ancient, I don't know about ancient, but say something, and then in the following questions, answer it. Yeah, because you can't in one question nail everything, so then you start explaining it in the next ones. So, what is spiritual death? Separation from God and pollution from sin. So let's look at the first one. What is spiritual death? Separation from God. Let's look at Genesis 3:22 to 24. Thank you. So what did God do to Adam? Banished him from the garden where God was, right? So you've got here the idea of separation from God when Adam sinned. So what is spiritual death? Separation from God. Let's look at the next one. And pollution from sin. So let's look at Ephesians 2:1 to 3. Thank you. So list the results of being spiritually dead. And the easiest way to do this is kind of work from the top, from verse 1, and work your way down. So list the results of being spiritually dead.
Following the course of this world.
Following the ways of this world, verse 2. Thank you.
Following the prince of the power of the air.
Thank you. Same verse. Following the ruler of the kingdom of the air.
We were disobedient.
We were disobedient. Verse 2. Can we have another one in verse 2?
The desires of the body.
The desires of the body, yeah, verse 3.
And the spirit, that prince of the power of the air was a spirit that worked in us.
Yeah, so the spirit of the ruler of the kingdom of the air at work within us.
Is it walking? Walking in trespasses.
Walking in trespasses.
Verse 2.
Verse 2.
Does sinful nature do one as well?
So in your translation, is that in verse 3, is it saying the cravings of our sinful nature?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so in the ESV, what is it?
Desires of our bodies.
Desires of our bodies. NIV 2011, desires of our flesh. Yeah. We're going to have a discussion about the flesh coming up soon, because it's very complicated. Basically, in the Bible, the Greek word sarx gets translated a variety of different ways, and sometimes translators have done a real good job of translating it, and other times they put a word that can be a bit misleading. Okay, so right, and another one would be by nature deserving of wrath at the end of verse 3. So what is spiritual death? Separation from God and pollution from sin. If you look at the picture of those two, I've forgotten what they're called now. Trying to remember science lessons in school. What are those containers there called? Beakers. Did you really? That's Battersea Tech. Okay, beakers. Okay, so right. So these beakers. Oh, sorry. When I say beakers, I think of little kids, plastic. So yeah. So, but okay. It seems the general consensus in urban schools is beakers. So okay, you look at one of them, yeah, and it's got clear water in, and the other one has just had a little bit of like vinegar put in it. You know, you just put a few drops of vinegar in it, and it totally changes the whole thing. The whole thing is polluted. And if I got a glass of water now and put some vinegar in and hand it to you, you probably wouldn't want to drink it unless you like to show off, and then you drink it, and we'd all have a good laugh. So that's an example of pollution. And because of sin, we are all polluted. So we experience spiritual death, which means we are polluted. It's a bit like, you've got a picture of a syringe there. It's a bit like, in a sense, that you have been injected with sin. You know, it's as if there's a syringe with sin in it, and now because of Adam's sin, it's like you're injected with it, and you now have sin within you, and it is polluting you. And as a result of that, if you look at the conveyor belt there, you got them suitcases on the conveyor belt. Because we're spiritually dead, we are all on our way to hell. We're going to see that in a minute, right? We're all on our way to hell. It's like we're all on a conveyor belt going to hell. If you saw Toy Story 3, it's like that big conveyor belt they're on at the end that's going to the fire. But unlike Toy Story 3, in Toy Story 3, they want to escape from the fire. They want to get off that conveyor belt. But because of the pollution of sin in our life, we happily sit on that conveyor belt. And we're quite happy going along. As long as we're not going after God, we're quite happy to go on our way. And that's one of the tragic effects of sin. We're polluted by sin in the sense that we will willfully rebel against God and can be quite happy about it. And that's why, like for us on this estate, you know, we tried the way of the master approach to evangelism out on the street. And it's a really good tool. But the interesting thing is when I've done it with people, you know, you ask them, would you like to do this test to see if you're a good person, you know, and you say, have you ever lied? And people say, yeah, and you say, what's that make you? And they say, I'm a liar. And you say, have you ever stolen? And they say, yeah, and you say, what's that make you? And they say, a stealer. And then you go, well, it's actually a thief, but yeah, go on, you know. And then you say, okay, so based on, you've said you're a liar and a stealer and an adulterer at heart, you know, and then you're like, so if God was to judge you based on his 10 commandments, would he find you innocent or guilty? A lot of people say guilty. And then you say, so then would he send you to heaven or hell? And some people say, well, I think he'd still send me to heaven. And you reason with them a bit, and then they go, okay, yeah, so I'd go to hell. And then you say, so does that bother you? And what I found consistently on this estate was, nah, you know. And I'm like, oh, you know, and then you try saying the thing that you're told to say about if you lost your eyes, would that bother you and all that. But in general, I found just a lot of people, it hasn't bothered them about the idea of going to hell. And that's because of the effects of sin, because of pollution, because they have spiritually died. So it doesn't bother them. Now, some people it will bother, but...
It would also be because they listen to too much Biggie Smalls and think that hell's going to be about it.
Hey, that's an interesting idea. Yeah. So it could be from listening to rap music and thinking hell's going to be a party. I was at a funeral where someone at the end, they said, Mum, whether you're up there or down there, when I get there, the next drink's on you. You know, and it's like, you're actually imagining hell as a place where there's a bar and you're going to order drinks and your mum's going to pay for you. You know, it's, you know, interesting. Mm-hmm.
It might also just be unbelief. Do you know what I mean? Like they don't, even though you're having this conversation, they don't believe in the fact that there's a hell. They do when something bad happens to them, but in general, they don't believe in it. So you saying you're going to hell, okay, you know, like, what do you want me to say?
Yeah,
like, what do I say to that? So, okay.
And if they're not believing, where is that coming from? The spiritual, the pollution, right? The pollution of sin.